Hey everyone, I am the Chosen One Legend here, as always joined by my co-host,
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
and welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where today we're going to be talking about Breath of the Wild 2, because there's been a recent trailer, as you may have heard, and suffice to say, I think we're both kind of hyped, are you, Kai?
Yeah, I'm very hyped. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
this. We've been anticipating it for a while, of course,
Hmm,
a very long while, but it's
2 years?
finally, yeah, 2 whole years. But we can finally sort of start seeing a little bit more from it in anticipation for next year.
Oh yeah, it's going to be really exciting as we get to see more and more of this game. So of course, this dropped at E3, and we will be discussing the rest of E3 in our main podcast next week. But for now, we thought Zelda deserves its own video, so we're going to give it one. We're basically just going to look at the trailer, and we're going to talk about some of the things that were shown off, what we think they mean, what we hope they might mean, and just see where it goes. If you're ready to get started then, Kai?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go, and there will probably be timestamps in the description below if you want to hop about between different topics. But I think the best way to start things off is just straight up initial impressions. What did you think watching the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer?
I liked it. I thought they displayed some pretty interesting stuff. They showed a couple like cutscene type bits. They showed off some of the world. I think overall it covered quite a few bases. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Pretty good way to end Nintendo's E3.
I definitely agree. That is the way to end. And they teased us with it. They were like, here's some more Zelda. Here's a little more Zelda. They kept it going. I mean, we did the reaction video, so if you haven't watched that, you can see us just the anticipation emanating
Yeah.
from both of us. But it was the perfect way to end it off. And whilst I wouldn't say it's like the most hype trailer ever, I don't think it needed to be because it's an early tease and it did what it set out to do perfectly, which is raise a bunch of questions so that the internet's going to be discussing it over the next several months, which is literally what we're doing here. So they left the gates open for a lot of
Yeah, they
possibilities.
did.
And I think probably one of the biggest ones, which I want to start things off with here, is the new area, the sky. So seemingly now we've got this whole world in the sky of different islands to explore, which is a really great concept. What do you think of that idea, Kai?
I think it's gonna be. I'm curious on how they're going to approach it with Sky
Yeah,
Islands because, of course, there's a couple different ways you can go about it, and the main thing is how do you make traversing those islands smooth, I suppose. So I'm curious
exactly.
more so than anything else how they're going to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean we don't really see these islands all separated, but we don't see a way to get between them, particularly the ones that are higher up and separated
Yeah.
far. You see him gliding down towards other ones. And actually, I just did think of one idea, because of course the glider is usually your main air traversal, and the one thing we see in the trailer is it's the same glider. The only difference are there are some sort of like wind streamers along the back of it. I wonder if wind direction is going to be a thing, so that's sort of an indication to like the way the wind is blowing, maybe, and that can help
Potentially,
you
potentially
follow
that could happen.
currents. Perhaps a big
Yeah,
current
we
launches you
could
up
see
from
it
one
happen.
island to another, or something along those lines. But I think one immediate connection people are drawing, and I'm definitely drawing because I'm a huge fan of it, is Skyward Sword. Because evidently,
Yeah.
that game not only is about islands in the sky, there's the immediate comparison with the initial shot of him diving, the same way Skyward Sword Link does. And of course, HD's coming out in a month. Not to mention all of the Skyward Sword references in Breath of the Wild with the goddess statues and certain locations and references to Fi inside the Master Sword. So do you think there could be heavier connections to Skyward Sword with this game? Do you think that's a possible situation?
I think there's potential for it based on what we've seen already. There's definitely
Hmm.
like strong. I think if they were to draw like very strong connections to another one of the Zelda games, Skyward Sword looks to be the most likely.
Yeah, it's the most
Considering
recent
all the
besides
themes
Breath
and
of the Wild.
everything. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think I don't know if they will fully tie it in. I feel like it would just be like essentially more references and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's going to be, again, a lot more for Skyward Sword than any of the other games, easily.
Yeah, I think you're right. There already was in the base game, and I think that trend is probably going to at least continue on the same level. Because they are surely aware we're doing Islands of the Sky. We had goddess statues last game. They must be aware. But I'll admit, I don't expect... I've seen some theories, but I don't expect there to be like a Loftwing or anything in the game. As awesome as that would be... as awesome as that would be, there is some potential things there I might talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I think let's transition to it now, actually, because... Of course, it's not just the sky we see. We also see the Land of Hyrule, the same Land of Hyrule from the first game. And before we dive a bit more into that, one kind of interesting thing is how does that world connect to the sky? Because we see specifically one of the final shots of the trailer when Link climbs through the ground with his new arm, which we'll get to later. You can see him on a sky island looking down across the Land of Hyrule. And you can specifically see it's the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the place with the tall mushrooms and then the big gorge to your right that leads to the Rito village.
The region, what's it called? Ridgeland.
Yeah. You can very well work out what place it is from the original map. But then when you look at the first shots of the sky, there's nothing below you, at least nothing visible, just endless sky. And that does raise the question of, is it just that the sky goes really, really high up? How big is this sky? Can you keep going higher up to the point where you can't see the land below? Or is it like its own map? There's a separate sky section, separate from the map of the main world. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that? Because we see sort of both ways and it's not clear how it's going to lean.
So, honestly, I am not too sure. The trailer is fairly vague, so it's hard to tell, of course. But I feel like it could go either way. I feel like, maybe the Sky Realm is completely different, and then there's just also Hyrule with floating islands. It could be that they're connected, and you get some sort of ability that allows you to travel up into the sky easily. I am honestly not sure. The one main thing that did stand out to me in the trailer was the scene right early on where Link is falling through the sky. And that struck me as interesting because from that perspective it looked even higher up than all the islands, potentially.
Yeah, that's true. Unless there's even more higher islands and it really goes up.
Maybe, but I feel like there's something else there. Like, again, I don't know if it's like an ability or a story event or something you can activate or what that allows you to be at the very, very height of things.
The Loftwing theory's starting to sound better now, isn't it, Kai?
Well, that's the thing, is that if you notice the way he was falling, doesn't Link fall the same way in Skyward Sword?
He does.
It
looks like the exact same way when he dives off a specific platform that you can dive off of.
Exactly, yeah.
So even if there's not a Loftwing involved, I do wonder if perhaps even like possibly there's a few islands in the sky level, and let's be real, if there's a whole massive world in the sky, rendering that and the world of Hyrule sounds like a bloody nightmare. So I'm not sure even the Switch Pro would be able to handle something like that. So it's possible if there is more to the sky, maybe there's a few islands in there, and then there's like a cloud barrier, like there is in Skyward Sword, when you pass through the barrier and you go into the world of the sky. So you go up a few islands, then there's a specific point when you transition into this rest of the world, which is above the clouds even you can see in Hyrule. That's the best theory I can give. But like all of this, again, we are loose speculating because the real answer is we have no bloody clue what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So
True.
But it's definitely exciting. Again, this is what makes it a good teaser because they left us just enough that we want to hear more. And speaking of transitioning a bit away from the sky itself and to the actual world of Hyrule, like I pointed out earlier, seems basically the same. So I specifically, and I'll splice in this picture now in the video if you're watching it on YouTube. But I took a screenshot of the area where they're fighting the Talus Tower, which, by the way, is awesome. That's a great idea. But
Hmm.
I took a screenshot and it looked. I couldn't get it exactly because Breath of the Wild doesn't have a photo mode. That's something 2 should have. But the rough
It does
idea
have
is
the
there,
camera,
and
but
it's
the
pretty much
camera's not
identical,
great.
other than the Talus being there, which isn't usually, and the Bokoblin Tower in the distance, or Fortress, which isn't usually. But the actual layout of the world seems to be the same. So that raises a question of how much is changed? Is there new terrain? Are there new villages? Or is it the same world? And I know you had some thoughts on that, Kai.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I hope that they don't just say like,
Kai?
"Oh, it's the exact same world, but there's like random ruins about now." Because I don't know. I kind of want something new. I don't want
Oh,
like a remix, if that makes sense.
yeah, that makes complete sense. Sorry, I missed that last bit because I accidentally had it muted somehow.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I literally, I'll just keep this in because it's dumb, but I was like, oh no, it's cut out again. I was like, oh wait, I just turned the volume down too low. Never mind. But but yeah, I know you're saying
Oh.
you wanted it to. There is some concerns of if it's just the old world again. Are you
Yeah,
retreading
like
old ground?
you can just get like random people who have modded the game to play something like that. Because I feel like just having the same world with some slight changes doesn't really deliver that much. I mean, the sky stuff looks amazing. Don't get me wrong, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna be excited either way. But I hope that they don't just do the same world with some slight changes. Because if I wanted that, that's like I feel like that's Pokemon third game levels of not that inspiring as a new entry.
That's kind of what
You
the
might as well
DLC
just
did.
call it like yeah, you might as well just call it a DLC at that point if that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
So I
because it
hope they
has.
have more changes than just that.
Yeah, I do agree, and I feel like there will, or at least there'll be enough to it because it's been so long now. It's been like it would have been 5 years. It would have been about the same difference between Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, between Breath of the Wild 1 and 2, which is kind of crazy
Yeah,
to think about. But
that is crazy.
when you look at it that way, you kind of think they've got to have been doing something crazy with this other than just adding some islands in the sky. So the only real difference that is immediately noticeable, and granted, it's the specific shots we see are like a generic part of Hyrule Field where it's pretty empty. So who knows what the rest of it's going to look like. But the most noticeable thing is that the Divine Beasts and the towers are not in the background. You cannot see them at all.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
now it could just be this is just in the trailer. Maybe there's something with the towers they don't want to show off yet, so they're just concealing them. But I don't know. What does that? If they're not there, that's got to mean something. But and that's a. I mean, the Divine Beast, you could just say, oh yeah, they've gone, or they're being researched somewhere else. But the towers are like a key point of traversing the map and how you go around the world. And I guess you could drop down from islands instead, maybe. But it still feels
Yeah.
weird that they're not there. So what's replacing
That's
them?
something. That's an idea, actually, and that's something I was thinking about. Is
Hmm.
I'm just checking. We can talk Breath of the Wild 1 spoilers, right? Like, we can.
Yeah, well, here you go. Spoiler warning if you
Okay.
haven't watched Play Breath of the Wild 1, but you probably don't need to worry.
Yeah. In terms of the Divine Beasts, I'm assuming they've just like, I don't know, they're just not being used anymore, so they've just been like moved somewhere. Because they were only there to destroy Ganon at that point, so
Yeah.
I guess that's done. Until now. In terms of the towers, yeah. So this is another thing: is that there's no form of fast travel that like we had in Breath of the Wild. So
No.
what's going to replace it? And that brings me to something. I believe it's a little later in the trailer. I'm just trying to find exactly where it is. I do have the trailer pulled up.
Oh, yeah. Smart idea.
Uh,
I probably should.
It's slightly. There's kind of two main theories for me, or three, I guess. The main one is the scene just before the one in the Hyrule Field, and you see this big monster thing, like
Yes.
this new thing.
Yeah.
It could be to do with that. I don't know if that's exactly going to be a fast travel point, but I feel like that's going to be integral to those new mechanics, especially since you see like, it kind of has two things shaped like Sheikah eyes on the side of it.
Yeah.
I feel like there could be something there. Alternatively, I feel like, I don't know, the gates that you see in a lot of the Skyward areas. I don't know if there's anything special to them. I just think they're cool, to be honest. But it could be possible that maybe those gates, when you get near them, activate and become portals to different sky gates.
Yeah, that is definitely
So
possible.
that's one of my main ideas. Is that
There
that
is a
could be
lot
the
of them, and
case.
they tend to be at like the ends of the islands if you look in the trailer. So
Yeah, exactly. So that could be like a thing where they're
definitely.
like portal door type things.
I did want to mention the that enemy we see because my immediate thought, and I haven't seen anyone else mention this, so maybe it's just me being dumb, but it kind of looks like a Zelda enemy called an Igor, which is in Majora's
Igor.
Mask. It's if you type it in Igor,
Yeah, I'm searching.
Eyegore, Zelda,
Oh yeah.
specifically the Majora's
Wait,
Mask
it
version.
does.
Yeah, I don't know if that's intentional, but that was the first vibe I got. But then again, at the same time, I heard some other people talk about it, watching different discussions, and they sort of treated it more like you said, maybe it has some connection to the world more than just being a generic enemy. But I don't know. That's the sort of vibe it gave me, and it could be both.
Yeah, the main thing about that guy that I want to point out is that honestly, I don't know if it will be. I don't think that this is like a regular enemy. I feel like
No.
maybe it's a boss, but I don't think this is a enemy you can hurt or anything. I think this is like a I don't know, maybe not like an NPC, but just like something you can't hurt at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely gives
Um,
that vibe, but
yeah,
it's interesting either way. They showed it for a brief few seconds, but they gave us no. Much like most of this, they gave us no context on it, quite purposefully. So
yeah. I feel like it could be like a mini boss of sorts, maybe,
hmm.
just because of the way it enters, sort of makes me feel like that. But even then, I can't imagine this thing being hurt at all.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure exactly what it is, but the green light that you see flowing through, I guess you call it its neck,
Yeah,
strikes me as interesting. That's
it's
one of the main things.
it
So
seems to
seeing
be the
that green
same.
again.
Yeah, it seems to be the same energy in the first trailer we saw, like sealing Ganon, and the one that's around Link's arm.
Yeah.
So presumably Sheikah, and like I said, we will definitely get to that arm later and what that could mean. But one thing I want to, keeping on with the world of Hyrule, is an interesting difference is that whenever Link is in the ground, you specifically see him wearing his traditional blue tunic with the ponytail. And it's got some slight upgrades, which we see in the trailer as well when they're finding Ganon, or presumably Ganondorf. But it's sort of mostly his traditional tunic, where all the Sky segments he has a new costume, a new outfit. And it's interesting that they distinguished both quite separately, and it could just be a design aesthetic. But I do want to mention that there's some theories even that we never see the face of the Link in the sky, and he's got the longer hair, and some people think it could be like you're playing as a different Link from years past, and whilst I think that's too reading into things,
That would be crazy.
it would be crazy, and that would
That
would
would be
explain the separate
insane.
world. But then again,
Yeah.
the only other thing is we see that same Link in the very final shot when you're in the sky and you can see the mushrooms below and that part of Hyrule. That is that same Link with the long hair and the old costume.
Yeah.
It's not quite. These are completely separate worlds with different Links, but I think there's something there. There might be something to do with this different costume in the sky that looks very ancient Greece kind of inspired. It immediately gives Immortals Phoenix Rising vibes. Not gonna lie, but
Fair enough.
I don't know. Do you think there could be anything in that, or do you think that's just a bit wild speculation at this point?
No, I feel like there's something to say about that, especially since you see in yeah, it's an interesting thing I hadn't really noticed too much that in the sky scenes and the ground scenes, Link's wearing different clothes.
Yeah.
And that might just be a design choice by them, like you have to wear these clothes in the sky, or they just chose to equip them for this area because we might just have costume customization again. But no, there's definitely potential for something there of like those clothes maybe being important.
Yeah. I
As,
should
as well
also.
as that, it should note that in that
Oh yeah.
dungeon type area, the one with the breathing fire, he is wearing a
Yes.
ground outfit. So maybe that's like new underground areas in Hyrule.
That is
I
the
don't know.
theory I've heard. That we're not just going up to the sky, we're going down to the caves as well. And that would definitely open things up a lot. Because
Okay.
caves are sort of a thing you get in a lot of open world games. You know, you look at your sort of your Skyrim kind of thing. But Breath of the Wild didn't really do caves at all. You know, or maybe it's even a traditional dungeon, because I know a lot of people would love one of those. So, myself
Potentially,
included.
yeah. There definitely could be.
I should mention that both costumes of Link have the same arm in the new whatever it is that's equipped with. So there at least is a connection between the two. I don't think they're separate links, but
Right.
it's interesting either way. And I think
Yeah.
maybe good time to talk about some of the new weapons, specifically his new arm. I was literally just like that shot from the Civil War with Spider-Man, where he's like, "Whoa, you got a metal arm? That's so cool." That was me watching the trailer because it looks dope.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, and we now the first thing that we talked a little bit before the video actually was, now Link doesn't have his Sheikah Slate, and he seems to use this to do a rune that's like stasis, not quite stasis, but along those lines. So do we think this is replacing the Sheikah Slate now? His arm, is this the new Sheikah technology?
I would say absolutely. And I know this is a thing a lot of people have talked about, where essentially this arm will be replacing the Sheikah Slate, and I think, yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is, I wonder, like how in the game when you bring up the map and that, he pulls up the Sheikah Slate, which obviously, unless he's going to have like a little map tied to his arm or a little hologram come up of it or something, that wouldn't function without it. I mean, they could just do it the way any other game does it, where it just brings up a map and it doesn't explain where this map came from. But
Or he just has, like, you know, an ancient map or something, you know.
yeah,
It could happen.
he could
That is
just
a good
have
point, though.
the stuff like the photo mode and the Sheikah sensor. I mean, some of that stuff could be tied in the arm, and they absolutely, you know, if they wanted to do this idea, they could do it without. If they wanted to get rid of the Sheikah Slate, they can. They don't need to think about all these details. They can work it out. But I just wonder how they're going. If there isn't a Sheikah Slate, it'll be interesting to see how they do implement these features differently, because they can't just copy how it was done in the first game, if that's the case.
Yeah, completely. Like that, I feel like that's going to be one of the biggest things. Is how are all these things that the Sheikah Slate provided before going to be introduced? Again, you know, we've talked about maps, potentially, you know, fast traveling, and as well, like on maps, how do you mark things off?
Yeah.
The runes. I feel like the runes are just going to be used through the arm, as we've seen.
I mean, in general, there seems to be
So many questions.
The more we talk about it, the more I realise they seem to just be wiping all of the Sheikah technology from the game in general.
Kind of, yeah.
What is
I feel
this
like there's still
arm
like elements
Sheikah?
of it here, but it's a different type of Sheikah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if this arm, it's quite possible that the arm and the green magic associated with it and the Igor-like enemy or creature, it could be Sheikah on some level, but it definitely seems different to the Sheikah magic we know, if it is.
Is that a good segue into like one of my big theories I keep obsessing over?
I think I know exactly where you're going to go. Does it begin with a Z by any chance?
Yeah, you know, maybe it does. Maybe it does, actually.
Go for it,
That's
Kai.
crazy.
Go for it.
So, something that's known is that the Zonai tribe
Hey!
actually, yeah, so they of course, I think they're going to absolutely be a big thing here. We've seen tons of symbolism from them, you know, starting in Breath of the Wild 1, where they had certain abilities, like possibly, you know, being able to see or you know, having some interaction with the dragons, since a lot of their stuff is dragon themed in the Faron region. So there's a lot of potential there, especially with that, like, you know, the shield fire breathing ability had
Which
the
is
Zonai
badass.
symbol on it. Yeah, so you had the Zonai symbol on that. The green, I've seen the green, like people say like, oh, maybe it's symbolizing courage in the game because you've got the Sheikah wisdom is the blue and then malice is the red, so this is green.
That makes sense.
I think it's going to be Zonai based though, because the Zonai are mainly a green color, like that's their main color.
Yeah, I mean, they're related to like the forest areas, aren't they? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, they're all related to the Faron region mainly. But it's known that they travelled all over to make the mazes, the labyrinths. As well as that, I think in some kind of trivia, I remember hearing about it like a year ago. But
Yeah.
it's that the Zonai are like some kind of they were like part of the Sheikah, or like they were some kind of detachment from the Sheikah, but they had like a strong relation there.
Mm.
So that's potentially why, we see a lot of things in this that seem like Sheikah technology, but aren't quite right, as you said. Like, it's similar, but not exactly Sheikah, and that's because I think that rather than that, we're delving into Zonai technology as kind of the step forward, to make it
Mm.
different. We're going from Sheikah to Zonai tech. And I think that's what we see with the arm is going to be based on that technology. Potentially all the ruins are related, although I don't know how strong that will be.
Mm.
I just think overall the Zonai are going to play about as strong a part in this as perhaps the Sheikah did in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I think I could definitely see that theory, and I really do like the idea of the colours as well with courage. That's quite neat. But it definitely has that feeling of we want to keep up what people love about this game, the Sheikah technology, which is a huge part of it. But you want to give people a new experience, make it Zonai technology, and that is a perfect way of doing it. So I could
Yeah, it
definitely
would
see
make
that
sense
theory.
for them.
And
Yeah.
I think one thing to mention here is specifically the only thing that. Also, actually, we see the arm do two things. The first of which
Hmm.
is the stasis like thing that I mentioned. It has the colour of stasis, yellow, and it seems to be like manipulating time, but rather than freezing time, you can see it reverses time. So that Spike's ball was rolling down a hill,
Yeah.
and when Link uses it, it goes back up. I mean, that's a great advancement to stasis and the idea of stasis, but to take it to a new level. I think there's some crazy ways you could implement that. Like if you can do it to enemies as well. I
Oh, I
don't know if
think
you
people are going
can.
to break the game with it.
Yeah,
I can already see it being used to break the game.
100%, and I love that.
That's such a crazy concept, though. Like, think about the physics in Breath of the Wild 1.
mm,
Arguing maybe that like they're going to be the same physics. Imagine that, but you can reverse time on things. Like, that's just going to be like that's another level of insane for the physics of this game. I can't even
yeah.
imagine like what people are going to do with this.
I mean, thinking with like the puzzles you could create with that in shrines. Now, of course, we don't see any evidence of shrines in this, but I'm assuming whether or not it's shrines, whether it's traditional dungeons, we are going to see similar puzzles play out. And the way that you'll be able to do
Yeah,
that with reversing time on objects, it's gonna get crazy.
yeah.
And I'm all there for it. And that's the only thing. That's the only traditional thing we see the arm do. We don't see any elements of upgrades to magnesis or the bomb runes. But I can only imagine that they're going to at least, if not keep them, upgrade those in similar ways. And who knows what they could do with what we already have. It's
Yeah.
could go crazy. I'm thinking
There
of
might not
the
be any more Cryonis, which is fine because no one ever remembered that one anyway.
you got to cut it deep, Kai. But maybe Age of Calamity does some interesting stuff with the runes. Particularly in Zelda's moveset.
Yeah,
I'm
they were
not
really
saying they're going
creative with it.
to strictly take stuff from that, but maybe we could see similar sort of ways play out and advancements. It would be neat. But the other thing that we see the arm do is when he seems to leap upwards with the arm and travel through the platform into one of the Sky Islands.
Yes.
Now, the shot before this, it's worth noting, you see a little puddle full of water, and it like reverses. It reverses into like a massive water drop and travels upwards, and then you
Yeah.
see Link jump through it with what seems like a puddle effect. I mean, these two shots are not necessarily connected. It could just be editing to give an illusion,
Yeah.
but it almost seems like if he's using reversing time again, if he's turning the puddle to a big drop, is that the thing with the arm? Is that not just a stasis move, but is changing time a whole thing with the arm? I don't know.
Maybe. Honestly, I think that could absolutely be a thing because we can see, even if you think like, oh, maybe that raindrop scene is in like reverse, it's absolutely not based on the way it animates.
Yeah,
So we know that there's going to be something here with absorbing water and reversing it. Again, it's absolutely a time reversal thing. As for it relating to the scene after, it's quite hard to see from like I've got the trailer up that I'm checking now. It's quite hard
Yeah.
to see when I'm in 360p, to be honest. Let me try and change that. Okay,
I mean, you
that's
can't
better.
really tell. You can't tell that the water drop is there, but when he climbs out of it at the end, it has this like ripple puddle effect that
It does, yeah.
kind of makes
I
you
think
think it's connected.
it could be. At first, I was thinking like maybe there's something to do with like the four elements because we saw fire and water like one after the other. But I
Yeah,
honestly doubt that just because the fire thing was with the other arm. So probably not. But I thought
yeah.
that
I
would
mean,
be cool.
I'm not gonna lie. I assumed it was the breath of the other arm at first. I didn't. It took me
Yeah,
like a rewatch to realize. Wait, that's his shield. But
yeah.
either way, however
Uh,
way this works, the fact that that gives him a way to travel to the islands. Was that from one island to another? I don't think so because that's the same shot where you can see the land of Hyrule below. But at the same time, the land of Hyrule is still quite far below. That seems like a big distance to travel by teardrop, or not teardrop, raindrop.
raindrop.
So, I mean, obviously there's clear Sheikah similarities to that with the teardrops that fill out your tablet and stuff, your Sheikah slate. But like, is that how you get to the sky specifically from the
Well,
surface, or is that
I'm
just
having a
one?
look back at the scene at the moment, and the first couple frames, you can see that when he's like flying upwards, you can kind of see some ground like quite near below him. Probably no more than 10 feet below him.
Oh, I see.
Um, so it is possible that maybe this just acts as like a small elevator. I don't know if this will be a huge thing. I mean, it still could be absolutely because of course a raindrop would go all the way up to the clouds, aka
Yeah,
where the cloud area is. So they're
yeah, that's true.
absolutely, yeah, and I think again maybe they're different things because maybe that raindrop thing is related to going up to the clouds, and then this thing where Link's flying through the bit before he goes through it. There's kind of like I don't know how you explain it, like a um, what's the thing you call with DNA? The double helix. You
Oh
can kind of see
yes,
like a
yeah,
double helix of the green stuff flowing around him. So I honestly I don't have a clue. There's so many
yeah.
possibilities of this.
All this video has just been us ranting on to say we have no bloody clue what they're doing, but we're excited to find out.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Because
much. There's so many possibilities.
I think that's the best thing about it, though. Like I said, it's interesting. It's not, it's not immediately mind blowing. They're not revealing all their cards right yet, but they've given us stuff that looks interesting and raises a lot of questions, and it makes you want to play the game. I would like to play the game now and find out what all this is about. So clearly they've done something right here, and
Yeah.
I just can't wait till we find out more. It's coming out next year, hopefully. I'd imagine we'll see more at some point by the end of this year, if not early next year, but it'll be an interesting ride. I think we've covered most of the bits from the trailer, but is there anything in particular you want to bring up now, Kai? Anything from the trailer or
One
anything you want to
thing.
see?
Well, okay, one thing really quick I want to see your thoughts on is, of
Hmm.
course, without the Sheikah technology there, how do you think that Link takes photos? If he does at all. It's just a small thing.
He has the Zonai selfie stick, so it's
Alright.
extends from his arm. It's
Alright, don't worry, I didn't need to ask that one. Okay. And the other question is, or just the other point is, maybe it's worth going over what we think is not exactly confirmed, but what we know from the trailer, like what we actually can see and are sure about. So mainly just like the story bits from the beginning, like we see there's lots of malice,
yeah. Good point.
and Zelda falls through somewhere. We see Zelda falling,
Yes.
potentially through the bottom of Hyrule Castle, because that's where we see them at the beginning of the game. So I think the sequence of events could be that Link and Zelda traverse down there like we see in the first trailer from a while back. And then as they get to the bottom, Link's arm becomes, filled with this malice slash Zonai fluid.
Yeah, it seems
And
to corrupt his
Zelda,
arm.
yeah, and then we see Zelda turn in the other trailer, and then she falls straight after here because all the malice is rising. And then
Yeah.
at the end of the trailer, we see the malice, or we see the castle rise entirely out of the ground. and all the malice is kind of coming up from below. So that seems like a strong story point.
Yeah. It's we assume the ghostly figure, or the sort of corpse figure down there, probably Ganondorf, given just context and the fact he's got Gerudo symbols on him. I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. And when we first see him in the initial trailer, the green hand that's tied to Link seems to be sealing him down there. So whatever this tech is, Sheikah, Zonai, whatever, seems to have been sealing him down. And something happens when Link and Zelda go down there. Maybe they do something, maybe it's just their presence. But that awakens this and somehow breaks the seal. And whatever was causing that seal attaches itself to Link's arm and I guess sort of temporarily protects him from the malice that's corrupted him and acts as a kind of like a fancy band-aid, I guess.
Fancy. There's honestly a lot of potential for that, actually. And actually, yeah, one more thing I forgot to discuss. We can see in the trailer that Link has a bow in certain parts, and of course he has the shield.
Yeah.
Do we ever see him wield a sword? I don't know if we do.
We don't. Obviously he's going to have a sword. I think one thing is, actually, we do specifically see him with the Master Sword, I believe, when he first goes down there, in like the first trailer and that. So
after that, like when he has this arm, I don't ever see him wield a sword or even hold one. He has a scabbard on his back in a lot of scenes, so probably does still wield a sword. But I wonder if there's something special with that because he's got the new arm.
I'm assuming the Master Sword either gets corrupted by the Malos, Xenoblade reference. There's a Xenoblade reference for the episode.
Indeed.
But if it gets corrupted by the malice or gets lost, and that's why he doesn't have the Master Sword straight away, the game can't let you have that. It is interesting that we don't see any sword with him though. It's Zelda. He's going to have a sword, surely, But that is an interesting point. I don't believe we do see him with one, but
he has a sword on his back. Like we see one in a scabbard, but we never see him use one. So I'm wondering if there's any sort of special stuff with him wielding a sword in that new arm. Maybe
he can enhance the sword, like imbue it with, rather than having like fire swords you pick up. Maybe, for example, the arm can imbue it with fire and turn it into a fire sword, and you can
elemental. That sounds cool.
Something like that. There might be some way you could enhance your sword through that. I'm guessing we probably just didn't see him wield a sword because the trailer's focused on showing off the new stuff.
Yeah.
The new rune and the like the fire shield and that. So they want to show off what's new. But it is interesting, and I do think you could be onto something there. That there may be something different to the way he fights, even, or something along those lines.
Potentially, yeah.
I could see that. And one thing that I'd wanted to add actually is talking about like traversal and like more upwards momentum and stuff with how the islands go. One thing that I think would be cool would be to see a hook shot implemented in this game.
That'd be nice.
And one thing that got me thinking is in Age of Calamity's new DLC pass, you get what's called the Guardian Flail, which you may remember from the trailer.
Yeah.
And in combat, some certain moves he does with it, he like swings it ahead and like pulls himself along with it. I almost feel like that would make an awesome way to, if not exactly the Guardian Flail, but something similar could be part of the arm, perhaps.
Absolutely,
and that could be how you attach yourself to things. That could be a way to, you're gliding towards an island, you're just a bit short of it, you use your arm extender, Min style, and you just reach and you pull yourself up or something, I don't know. But
that would be really cool.
I just think that's one more thing that could be good with helping in the traversal of the sky and how he uses his arm. Really, there's so much possibilities. We could talk for ages on what could be, but I think we covered most things. Is there anything else you want to touch upon, Kai?
I think just once again, the whole like Talos Bokoblin camp is really cool. And
it is awesome.
We see that there's a new... Yeah, that's awesome. Really, really cool. And we also see a new species of Bokoblin on that. They have like massive horns.
With the horns. All Bokoblins in the trailer have those horns. Yeah.
Maybe that's like something important. Maybe that's just what Bokoblins look like now. Although, no, maybe not, because they don't in later scenes. Anyway, that's
the new fashion
like a new
trend
thing. No, actually, yeah, we see every Bokoblin in the trailer has that horn on its head. Maybe that's important. Maybe it's just a design change. I don't know.
There's a lot, and just show us more, Nintendo. Hopefully we'll find out more soon, and you can be sure that the moment that we find out more, be it in our main podcast or separate video, we're going to be talking about it. So
absolutely,
stay tuned for that. I think that about brings us to the end of the video then. So thank you so much for listening to our ramblings. Kai, would you like to tell people where they can find you at?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. Link will be in the description. I'm currently playing through... What am I doing? Metopia. That's what I'm doing.
Yes.
And that's a lot of fun. It's a crazy game. So, that's good.
Yeah, definitely come join if you can. Of course, there'll be links in the description below. Also, our good friend Sam, big thank you to you, Sam, for creating all the channel graphics you see, and the logo and the thumbnail and everything. And of course, you can find us all here on BunchaJokahs on YouTube, as well as audio-only versions on Spotify and other podcasting sites like Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And do stay tuned, because we're going to have more content, including our next weekly discussion next week, talking through everything else at E3. Hopefully in less detail, otherwise we'll be there for 6 hours. But it should be good fun.
Oh, man.
So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Bye.